How's it going, everybody? This is Eddie, and this is another episode of Indie No. This is an indie game. It's great. Let's start with that. Developed by Warm Lamp Games, it's called Beholder. It's available on Steam as of November 9th, 2016. You play as this fellow. He's a state-installed apartment building manager. This is the previous guy here with the keys. He's the previous manager. He got in a little trouble with the law. And here's your family. You got kids, you got a wife, and you're hopeful that this opportunity of managing an apartment building is gonna turn your life around. But you can see, obviously, if things don't go well, the police aren't too friendly. It kind of has a Papers, Please vibe, first and foremost, I would say, because it is a management game, but it's winds up being strangely plot focused. I mean, you're already seeing in the intro video here that there's a setting, like there's a big setting, right? And it's a rather unique setting. It's one that reminds me again of Papers, Please, but also a little bit of World of Goo and Playing with Fire. Those games. I'll probably talk more about that later. And I don't know. It's great. So this is an interesting moment here. You're walking into the apartment building for the first time in the intro video. The previous guy is getting out, and you give him this glare, this death glare, like, you traitor to our country. So clearly, like, they're sort of setting this scene here where you're definitely a servant of the country, even though maybe things don't seem so great in this country, in this society. Doesn't seem to set up in your favor too well, perhaps. But that's the intro of the game. And a couple things. Because there's an emphasis on plot, I'm really skipping through the dialogue here. Also, this is my second or third playthrough, I don't remember. So, yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. This guy here is sort of the boss. I'm also going to skip the tutorial. So, let's see. Your daily routine involves making the building a sweet spot for tenants who come and go. However, that is simply a facade that hides your real mission, spying on your renters. That was a quote from the Steam page. I don't know if I mentioned this game is available for $9.99 US. $10. Yeah, so the plot is that, you know, you're supposed to be keeping this building running, helping out the tenants as need be. That's your job. But really, you work for the ministry, and the ministry is going to tell you to spy on them and help you uphold their laws. It starts off very reasonably. The ministry asks you to spy on this dirtbag. You're going to see it pretty soon. When you talk to the family, the dirtbag is pushing the kids and saying nasty things to your wife. He doesn't like to talk to you, and you catch him doing drugs, which is one of the early laws that they impose, is that these drugs, you're not allowed to do the drugs. Seems somewhat reasonable, so you report him, and that's that. Things quickly get to a point where you have the ability to work through your own problems. Ministry says such and such a person, spy on them, or such and such a person, kick them out of the apartment, evict them, and you can choose how you want to handle it. Do you help them find a new home, or escape the government and escape the country in some way? And that leads you down a whole route, or do you just simply say get out because it's your job and that's what you want to do? It's like kind of a moral decision. And there's sort of like two things. There's the management part of the game where you just saw me install a camera that helps you see what's going on. If you catch people doing illegal things on the camera, you can report them. You can get some money for that, and the money's really important for like main quest line stuff. But there's all these other side quests as well, pertaining to the other tenants, what they need, and their struggle to survive in this, like, kind of, well, shitty, like, situation and area. You can choose to help them if you want, but that comes at an expense to yourself, and it takes a lot of time as well. You really got to plan it out. So there's this ministry, there's your friends and family. Those are the two things you kind of have to deal with. You have to deal with them. Well, I guess the friends, maybe not so much. You do have to deal with your family. You don't necessarily have to deal with the other tenants so much as just spying on them, catching them do their illegal activities, and reporting them. If you choose to strike up more conversations with them, you may learn more about them, and they may ask you to do things which you can either do or not do. So then later on, there's like a little liberation rebellion front that kind of barges their way into the plot line. I won't talk too much about that, but you can choose to stick to your job. As you may expect, you can choose to stick to your job and ignore them, or try to help them out with some tasks, again, at the expense of your own time and money, and that adds like a whole nother level of difficulty. So the gameplay, as you just saw, I planted some cameras and I searched some things in the house. So that's like the main management style of the gameplay. Sneak around when they're not in there, peek through the door keyhole, see if they're there, knock on the door, see if they answer. If you think it's safe, go inside. You can try to monitor them. Did they get on the bus? Have they come back from the bus yet? This kind of a thing. It's pretty engaging. The first playthrough, I played mostly with that. And did not really care too much for the people, but I ended up getting wrapped up in this one quest line, and it made me go back and play it again, where I pretty much didn't put any cameras in, which I actually think is this playthrough. Almost no cameras in the place, and just relied on talking to people to get your information. So if you need dirt on someone, you can ask the other tenants, and they will tell you he's a smoker, he's a gambler, that kind of a thing. Which is interesting that there's these two different ways to do it, and if you really want to bust everybody for every crime possible, you really have to kind of do both those things. But if you do that, you're probably going to maybe have difficulty with some of the other stuff, because you have to keep buying the cameras and that kind of a thing. So reporting people gets you money. But talking to people gets you side quests. Side quests also gets you money, but side quests also sometimes cost money, because you have to spend money to actually help people. And so that's sort of how it tends to play out. You have to kind of do your job as best as possible, so you have extra funds to fund the fact that you're probably going to be helping your friends and family out. And I will say that pretty early on in the game, it throws some curveballs at you where you need a lot of money, and you need it quick. And something really bad happens if you don't have it. And then it happens again. And then riots start in the street, and half your apartment building kind of breaks down, and you have to, in order for your tenants to be happy and not move out, you have to go around spending a bunch of money repairing everything. So it's crazy. Very difficult game. Very difficult game. There's so many unintended consequences for your actions. I have condemned people to death by accident. It was awful. I felt bad about it, and I didn't expect to either. It was like, oh yes, it's a management game. This is what I have to do. I've been asked to help somebody leave the city, and I do, and then the consequences of that were bad. I won't spoil why, because this game, as far as I can tell, is not randomized at all. So I do think you could probably spend some time tweaking a run, sort of like, I guess I don't really have a good game to compare it to, but, you know, you could probably figure out what kind of a person you want to be, and then figure out how best to do that by playing over and over again, or you can just experiment with different ways of playing. The art, let's move on to that. Awesome. Awesome. I mean, look at it, right? I think it's great. I think your chubby little guy is so cute and so miserable at the same time. It's just perfect. I said before that the Papers, Please is kind of reminiscent. As a matter of fact, I don't know if we have it right now, but there is actually a quest called Papers, Please, because clearly there's a lot of inspiration between these two games in terms of setting. And the mechanics are just totally different here, right? You're not trying to spot differences in documents. You're actually trying to do something a little bit more like, I don't know, maybe Fallout Shelter? Yeah, I don't really have any really good game to compare its mechanics to, but aesthetically, or setting-wise, I should say, it's very, very similar, where you're dealing with a government that is forcing you to basically do things you probably wouldn't do in order to get resources to keep track of your family and sort of keep the plot alive. The art I mentioned before, it kind of reminds me of the World of Goo and Playing with Fire type art, where things are kind of dark and kind of creepy, but they have this very cute aspect to them. In terms of the world building, I think they did a great job giving the characters each a personality. Again, it's not randomized. These tenants are the same every time, and you can find out more information about them if you really try to strike up conversations with them and stuff. I think they did a great job in that respect. In terms of oh, there we go, just busted him doing drugs finally. It took a while actually that time because he just didn't do the drugs under the lamp for some reason. So here is an example of writing up the report. It's almost like a little mini game. You have all your notes and all your observations. You have to be on your toes. You have to be able to constantly watching the whole apartment building so you can actually spot not only when someone does something illegal, but when someone does something like a characteristic of themselves. If you catch them smoking, if you catch them dancing, if you catch them with a gun. That's one thing that sometimes happens. And just so you have the information, you don't have to necessarily report them, but you can write this report on them that asks you things like, what law did they break? When was that law passed? So it's you kind of have to do your due diligence there. It's not just as simple as clicking things and having them go. Also, to add to the nice flair to it, the police officers when you click on report somebody, they don't just disappear and it says mission complete. The police officers actually show up and beat them out the door. You'll see it here in a second. It's pretty nuts. It makes you feel kind of bad. But then you can also profile your tenants. So if you just observe things that aren't necessarily proof of illegal activity, but you'd like a little extra money, and I think this is where I lack the most. I think I need to do this way more in my playthroughs of this game. But you can actually observe them, let's say smoking, right? You can observe them smoking, or you can find gambling. If you search their apartment and you find evidence that they gamble, you can actually profile them and get a little bit of money. And so that's one of the games. Oh, then as a little piece of setting, there's newspapers that come through, and on the back there's this voice of truth, which is clearly someone who is unhappy with the way the society is run and trying to let everybody know about it. You can profile people. You can also blackmail them if you really are in need of money. I actually never did it, so I'm not totally sure how it works. I could never really bring myself to do it because I knew from other experiences that there were consequences for your actions, and that it was very easy to accidentally deal with someone the wrong way and get shut out of their quest line. And if you get shut out of their quest line, it could cascade. To give you an example, one character is in need of medicine at one point, or one character is in need of help escaping. Another character has the means to help them escape. I did not do the quest well enough with the character that could help out the other character, and I'm being vague because I don't want to spoil who it is or what it is. And when I didn't do the quest good enough, that other character left without that character, even though in my first playthrough that didn't happen. And when that happened, basically I had to, here were my choices. I could either report this person who's a good person, who's very helpful in other parts of the game, and just watch them go to jail, or lose. That was it. There was no other option. It was awful that I just thought I could do it a different way, you know? Like, I just thought it could work out, but there was no warning it wasn't gonna work out, and it didn't, and it was like, oh, and I just stopped. I was like, I gotta start again, because I want to succeed at this quest. They do a good job of motivating you with that, especially if you, unlike this playthrough that I'm doing right here, take the time to read the dialogue and kind of get to know the different characters. I would like to try a playthrough. I didn't do this. I should do it. I would like to try a playthrough where I just don't talk to anybody. I don't care what your problems are. I'm not going to take your requests. I'm just going to report you. I'm just focus on cameras, focus on searching the apartments, and just repeatedly churn people out for their illegal activity and take care of family first. I haven't tried that. I'm interested to see exactly how different it would be. I'm guessing it would be pretty different, because most of my time, especially in this playthrough here, most of my time was spent talking with resident to resident, going back and forth, seeing who needs what favors done so that I could do the favor, and then they will do a favor for me, which will help me solve a favor for somebody else, and eventually by that means kind of come across the resources and money and other means that I need to help my family. And I'm just gonna, tell ya that both times I tried doing that, didn't work out. Very sad. There are many end states to this game. I've received one where I was thrown in jail and one where I die. And neither of them were at like the end of the sort of storyline thread that is sort of loosely woven throughout this regarding your time working with the ministry, or maybe your time working with the liberation, or the rising political unrest in the city. So I don't know if there is an end. I don't know if eventually it just becomes, yeah, you're not getting any more money, but there's no way you could have gotten enough money to solve these problems, and you eventually go under. Obviously, the point is it's supposed to be hard to win, because that kind of helps the message of the game. So maybe there's just no way to win. I don't know. I'm compelled to find out, though, because I really enjoy the game. Every time I enjoy a game this much, I'm always finding myself looking to find out more about the developers and the publishers and the game engine and everything like that. And I was surprised this time. So Warm Lamp Games is the developer. This is their first game on Steam. And based on the website, possibly their first game ever. That's really impressive. Also, this game was made with Unity 3D, which I always like to mention because I feel like it gets a lot of flack, whereas I'm a big fan of the Unity editor. I believe that it lets, because it's free and still pretty high quality, all things considered, and I'm someone who's used it quite a bit, it really opens up game development to be accessible to a lot more people. Obviously, some people rush out products or do the asset flip thing, and that's no good, but you know, a game like this may have never happened if the developers were forced to pay like $100 or more a month to develop the game. We don't know, maybe this game took 5 years to develop, and that would be, you know, a huge deterrent for them. Anyways, the thing that surprised me the most is that this group is actually based out of Siberia, Russia. Which is interesting. I don't know, I don't think I've ever heard of a game developer based out of there before, so cool. Yeah, and the other thing is that the Alwar Entertainment publishers, this is actually not their first game. They seem to have many games on Steam, so maybe there was some guidance there. But for the most part, this seems like a very fresh new studio doing a very fresh new game that is available for PC and Mac, but I think is a great fit for mobile as well. And I do want to mention something else which was interesting, not related to this game, but related to, not related to the game part of this game, but related to my review. So I actually originally received a key for this game from the developer through a service that gives you keys to review things. and I was very pleasantly surprised with what I saw. Actually, I wasn't surprised. Their marketing material looks pretty good, and reason why I asked for the key is because I thought I was going to like it, and I really did. And I was gearing up to make a video before the release. This key was given to me before the release. There was no statement that said I couldn't talk about the game before the release, so I figured I would make this video. I would say that it was great, and that would be good. I did have like one crash. The game content seemed to be pretty much the same. I think I had like one crash while playing, but you know, it's before release. It's not technically done yet. I went to start up the game a number of days later. I think I had played it twice with very short settings, and I was going to record this time. And what ended up happening is it wasn't in my Steam library anymore. This was odd. It's never happened to me before. And it wasn't on Steam at all anymore. And, well, it was. There was a page saying coming soon, but it wasn't in my list of games, and there was no way I could get it back. I couldn't redeem the key again, and when the game officially came out, I didn't have it purchased, which is something I've never seen either, like a temporary key, which is an idea that I thought about, and I thought, you know, that actually makes a lot of sense. You know, giving developers a temporary amount of time to play a game when you're an indie studio and you want to give your game to as many reviewers as possible without necessarily eating away at your own player base. I think this is a good tactic, and at first I was disappointed I was going to have to pay for this game, but then I realized that I liked the game, and I don't have any problem paying for games that I like. So that was just interesting. I've never seen it before. I wonder if that's a feature of Steam. I wonder if that's something that all developers have access to do, or if there was some fluke where, you know, for whatever reason, the developers had it pulled from the store completely and then re-added. I think maybe it had something to do with the delayed launch date. Like maybe they gave out the keys intending it to be a month, or rather a week before the release date, but it ended up being about a month before the release date. I'm not really sure what happened, but I've been sitting on the knowledge that this game is good for a very long time. Obviously, I'm still late to making this video, which is too bad. But yeah, I think that anybody who likes management games, anybody who likes Paper Please, anyone who likes those, whoa, what's going on in this society? Let me read these little scraps of paper and get an idea of like the crazy stuff going on. Anyone who likes a hard game, anyone who likes a game that just when you think you have an insurmountable mountain, they just give you another one just to bring it home that you've lost already. And if you like games that make you make moral choices, all of those reasons are reasons why you should play this game. I fear that this video did not do it justice, as I didn't get very far. But I think that one of the most important things to show you is the introduction sequence, opening cutscene, because that really sets it up really well. I also think another important thing to show you, or to not show you, is where all the quest lines wind up. So that's another reason. But I don't know. I mean, I guess what I'm showing you right now is kind of important. I'm just found a secret note in the mail that's helping me advance a quest line with one of the residents that helps me get closer. And that resident is a doctor, so that if and when a certain other character gets sick, perhaps I'd have a means of actually healing them. And, you know, that kind of a thing. So, I guess I'm showing you the gameplay. What you're not seeing here is me running around, sneaking in rooms, trifling through their belongings, and possibly setting up cameras and then catching them in criminal acts and reporting them and having them be taken by the police. I'm trying to do it without spending all my money on cameras and stuff, but instead by simply talking to residents and trying to take it from there. Here's a close-up of our little guy. I think he's cute. Here's the little office. He's got his keys. That's great. It's awesome. This is Beholder. Excellent game. Very glad I got the chance to play it. Thanks for being an awesome audience. That's it for me for now. See you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.